Okay, Elon Musk is not taking a seat on the board of Twitter, but you know what? That's actually good news because it means Elon Musk can actually maybe launch a hostile takeover. I think he's going to have just as much influence. We're going to get into all of that. Plus, we got to talk about Biden's poll numbers, which have just been getting worse and worse and worse. And you know what? Now it's all thanks to inflation. According to a brand new CBS YouGov poll, the American people say the president is not doing enough to combat sky-high energy costs. I would agree with them on that one. Plus, breaking news coming to us from Ukraine as Europe still refuses to shut off nat gas supplies coming in from Russia. Let this be a warning to every single one of us. We must never depend on anyone else but ourselves. Energy security is national security. We're getting into all of it today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Trish Regan Show. I am Trish. A quick reminder that portions of today's program are brought to you by Legacy Precious Metals. There has never been a better time to invest in things like gold and silver than right now. So go to legacypminvestments.com for more, legacypminvestments.com. And let's start off here with Twitter because shares are actually higher in Monday's trading. Investors at first were a little bit nervous because, they wanted him to have that seat on the board. I predicted, of course, he would get it. He did. But now it looks like it's not going to happen. I have a feeling I know why. I know why. And that's because, when you're on the board, you can only say certain things, right? You don't have the same kind of leeway to just say what you think and tweet what you think because you have a fiduciary responsibility, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You also have the limitation of only being able to buy up to 14.9% in the company. At least that's the deal that Twitter has with its board. So I have a feeling that, over the weekend, as Elon was out sharing all kinds of tweets in which he knocked Twitter as a business, and we can get into those, I have a feeling they went to him and said, you know what, we need you to sign these things. And Elon Musk was like, no, I don't think so. I'm not going to sign those things. And so consequently, the CEO of the company released this. Elon Musk has decided not to join our board. Parag Agrawal said, he's again the CEO of Twitter. He said Musk had, quote, many discussions about his future with the company before ultimately deciding against the board seat. He goes on to say, quote, we were excited to collaborate and clear about the risks. We also believe that having Elon as a fiduciary of the company, where he, like all board members, has to act in the best interests of the company and all our shareholders, was the best way forward. The board offered him a seat, but nonetheless, Musk decided to go in a different direction. Well, one would have to assume that there would be shareholders that weren't happy with some of the things that Elon Musk tweets, and so he would have opened himself up perhaps to lawsuits. The CEO goes on to say, I believe this is for the best. We have and will always have input from our shareholders, whether they're on the board or not. Elon is our biggest shareholder, and we will remain open to his input. Yeah. Well, you know what? I guess employees will be happy, right? Because I told you on Friday about how worked up they were, and there was effectively sort of talk of a mutiny. They were threatening to leave. They thought that this was threatening free speech. Elon said he would do a town hall, kind of ask me anything with people, but still they were pretty upset. And he probably didn't ingratiate himself necessarily with some of the rank and file over the weekend because he sent out a poll to 81 million followers that he has, in which he wrote, quote, convert Twitter San Francisco headquarters to homeless shelters since no one shows up anyway. More than 1.5 million people responded to the poll, 91% casting a yes vote. And Elon Musk insisted, I'm serious about this one, by the way. In other words, he was making the point that why do you have these headquarters, these expensive headquarters in a very expensive city like San Francisco if nobody's actually going to the office? Don't forget, just recently, the CEO of Twitter had said people were invited to work from home. They were invited to work in the office. They could do a hybrid. It was up to them. So that's sort of what employees have been accustomed to in terms of their culture. And now all of a sudden this guy comes in out of nowhere buying 9.2% of the company and threatens that. He later deleted the poll. But my hunch is that people were probably freaking out here. There was another tweet over the weekend in which he made a very good point that some of the top people on Twitter, from Lady Gaga to Taylor Swift to Barack Obama, with hundreds of millions of followers, do not actually tweet that frequently. So he asked, is Twitter dead? Again, not sitting well with the rank and file employees. So perhaps this contributed to him sitting down with management and saying, okay, maybe is it the right thing for me to join the board? Here's what I'm going to tell you as a shareholder and as somebody who wants to see, I'm not a shareholder personally, but if you were a shareholder, but as somebody who I personally do want to see more freedom of speech, right? A democratization, if you would, of speech, a diversity of speech out there, I think this is actually good news. I think this is good news for the company. It is good news for our freedom of speech because it permits him to be a little bit more vocal. I mean, he's got a huge platform, right? I mentioned the 81 million followers that he has on Twitter. And of course, he always seems to make news. So I think he's got the platform. Oftentimes, investors will join a board because they want to be able to influence the situation. They want to be able to push the company to do this, that, or the other. In this case, he can kind of push for a lot of change without actually having to be there. Don't forget, over the weekend, he also said he wanted to see the Twitter Blue premium subscription service price changed, included reducing its price actually, banning advertising and giving an option to pay in cryptocurrency Dogecoin. Remember I told you I thought he would do something with Dogecoin or with cryptos? I think that's going to continue. I'm a little disappointed because I would have liked to have seen him on the board, but I get it. And I actually think ultimately he does have more influence. As I said, he's got the platform, right? And now I suspect they're going to have to listen. They're going to have to listen because he is the biggest shareholder and he could certainly get bigger and bigger and bigger. And he could launch a hostile takeover. So this is all pretty interesting stuff as far as Twitter goes. But I want to get to another big story that we're following right now today. And that is, of course, CBS coming out with a brand new poll showing that Joe Biden is doing even worse than perhaps he thought. 67% of independents think that he could do more to lower gas prices and that he isn't. So consequently, he's coming in with his lowest approval rating ever on the CBS News poll, 42%. Again, the lowest yet in their polling. And I suspect there's more room to go there because energy prices are going to continue to get higher. The poll has Biden below 40%, I should say, on the handling of crime, immigration, inflation, and the economy. Look, these are the things that matter to people. This matters. So I don't know how the Democrats managed to get elected or get another 4 years when you're performing so poorly on these basics, right? These are things that people expect from government. We expect government to keep us safe. We expect government to protect the integrity of the US dollar. And yet, when you're looking at mass inflation and when you're seeing crime in the streets, when you've got an immigration situation that is clearly out of control and growing worse, don't forget what happens next month with the repeal of Title 42. There's an expectation that you're going to have at least 8,000 immigrants a day at the border crossing into this country, potentially as much. Some have quoted 30,000 a day. So this is not something that the country can really manage, and consequently, whether he likes it or not, he's going to get blamed for it. On top of that, he's getting blamed, of course, with the Russia-Ukraine situation, and we're going to get into that in just a moment. But before I do, I just want to give a quick word for one of our sponsors here, one of our wonderful sponsors, new sponsor on the program. You know, I was just talking about illegals and how they're protected. I'm all for being protected, but it seems as though it's illegals and criminals and corrupt politicians these days that are getting all the protection, which is why it's time to protect our conservative values and our beloved country. And you can do this by joining the Association of Mature American Citizens, which is standing up for you every single day and standing up for the future of America. It's a conservative voice for mature Americans. They're standing up for the causes that I know you as a freedom-loving American care so much about. So by joining AMAC, you're going to combine with efforts of over 2.3 million members who also share your values, and you're going to get all kinds of benefits, extensive benefits, including discounts on travel, cell phone plans, insurance, etc., much, much more. So go to amac.us/Regan, my last name, R-E-G-A-N, amac.us/Regan, and join or renew today. You know, it's only going to cost you $16 a year, and you're going to make up for it just in the first week alone with all those benefits. So you can join. It's time to protect faith, freedom, and family. Join AMAC today, amac.us/Regan, and take a stand for America. Getting back here to what's going on with Russia And Ukraine, we're seeing that the EU is having these meetings in Brussels right now. They're trying to decide on whether or not to send more aid. You saw that Boris Johnson was over there over the weekend making a tour, and some people criticize it as a photo op. I would say, photo op or not, whatever you want to call it, it was really something to see the British Prime Minister there touring the streets with President Zelensky. So that happened. We're seeing whether or not there will be additional weapons sent to Ukraine for the next leg of this war. Of course, Russia's trying to take the Donbass region, and it means that there's going to be a lot more in terms of the actual warfare equipment that is used, which is why Ukraine is pleading so desperately. But one of the things I keep getting back to is my frustration over this whole sanction business, or lack thereof, right? Lack thereof, because, you know, even as we get word of massive casualties in Mariupol, and by the way, I spoke with a war crimes investigator who had been on the ground there in Mariupol on Thursday's show, so I can urge you to go back and listen to that Thursday's program with David Fault. Anyway, all these atrocities are happening, and yet Europeans are still actually purchasing energy from Russia. I mean, I don't understand how that can really even happen, right? Because sometimes you just sort of need to take a stand on things, and yet they're effectively still doing business with these guys. Germany right now is resisting the idea of an oil ban, and EU officials are said to be nervous in part because of the elections that are taking place in France. Don't forget, we saw over the weekend that Emmanuel Macron is in quite a runoff, a much tighter than expected runoff with Marie Le Pen, which is going to be decided just in a couple of weeks. So they got that going on. They've got Hungary, which has been erring more on the side of Putin. And so they're trying to balance all this stuff out. But I would just say, for goodness sakes, I mean, as the international community recognizes the horrors that have been occurring, shouldn't they stop giving money to Russia for energy? I mean, this, by the way, the moral of the story in all of this is that perhaps one of the reasons they're not doing this is because they can't, because they're so fearful of recession that would be caused by all this inflation in energy prices. You take that much energy off the market, what does it do? It sends prices higher. Of course, we get that. And that, by the way, will also affect us. It already has, and it will. Because as Europe's economy slows, as Europe deals with mass inflation, well, we feel the ripple effects of that as well. Which is why I go back to this. You know, it's really critical when you're looking at energy, or when you're looking at intellectual property such as the semiconductor industry. It is so critical that we be able to support ourselves in those industries. I mean, take the energy industry, for example. President Reagan warned Germany of this in 1981. He fought really hard against Germany being reliant on Russia for nat gas. And yet they did it anyway. They made massive, massive mistakes, and the whole world is trying to clean this mess up right now. So let this be a warning to all of us. We need our own energy supply. We need our own semiconductor supply. We need to be able to depend on our domestic economy as much as possible. Quick reminder, do not forget to subscribe to this podcast, to this channel, if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble. By the way, I'm thinking about maybe doing this live, we'll see how it goes this week, on Facebook or on YouTube. Let me know what you think of that idea. Weigh in the comments below. And of course, as I said, do not forget to subscribe. I'll be back here with you tomorrow.